Did you guys hear about the update to the Elon Musk story? Elon Musk used to have a fantastic image in the United States. If you would poll people on Elon, he had an approval rating somewhere nearing like 84%, right? 82, 84%. I mean, that's the type of approval rating you get for being a sports icon, a music icon, or you get for being some sort of religious saint, right? Or in this case, you would say he is a sort of scientific saint, and that's how he was portrayed in popular media. Is that to say that none of it was earned? No, I mean, I think in like aerotech, there's been advancements. Teslas really were the main dog on the block when it comes to electric cars, and really growing that industry in the United States, and somewhat normalizing that industry in the United States before they made themselves social outcasts with their main consumer base. But he was like, if you watch how Elon Musk was portrayed on The Simpsons, um, it's hard to even know the same person they're talking about anymore, considering how much Elon Musk has battered himself all over with just bad political takes, just the cynicism, the name calling, from the Thailand cave incident where he called those rescue divers diddlers, to him just becoming a master experts over stuff overnight, learning about a topic, immediately becoming an expert on that topic. Oh, I just learned about drones. Drones are going to take over everything. There'd be no planes in the future. They'll just be drones. Just this type of, I just got here. Whoa, tanks are of the past now, dude. I'm the expert here. It's really rubbed me the wrong way. And when it came to his peacemaking on Kherson, and his peacemaking on Ukraine, it was probably its worst. Elon Musk, Kherson. Here is the story. So what I'm saying is, Elon Musk has a bad record on acting like an expert on something he just learned about overnight, despite whatever expertise he might have on spacecraft. And this bled over into an order he made to shut down Starlink services in Kherson. Some of you might remember that there were Starlink outages during certain counteroffensive operations at the time. I remember hearing some talk about it because I did a short, very low budget documentary on how Starlink was supporting the Ukrainian war effort and the huge risk Ukraine was under due to it being at Elon Musk's charity. Because at the time, the only thing that formally held Elon Musk, Tesla, and Ukraine together was an informal agreement for Ukraine to be supported by Elon and to provide them with Starlink terminals in order for them to continue internet communication, as Russia was trying to destroy Ukraine's communication and internet infrastructure. But with no formal contract, at any time, Elon could say sayonara and shut them all off with no legal recourse. There'd be no real penalty. And as Elon was starting to get more opinionated on the specifics on what the Ukrainians should do, and for those opinions to be oftentimes, I would say, uninformed or starkly at odds with Ukraine's national interests, this became more of an issue. And I warned about what it could mean, and eventually they did get formal contracts. And so it seems like others took that threat seriously as well. But before that formal contract was hammered out, there was the Kherson counteroffensive. Now, there was two counteroffensives. The first one was the Kharkiv counteroffensive. It was a shock to the Russians. They didn't see it coming. A lot of their equipment got overrun. They got overrun, and a lot of territory was taken back, which the Russians are currently fighting over again, like Kupiansk and otherwise. But after that, there was a Kherson counteroffensive. Now, the Kherson counteroffensive was much more hyped. People kept saying, oh, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, even to the point where right when it was starting, when I was in Mykolaiv, which was the direction it was being launched from, people said, oh, it's happening. And I was like, yeah, sure. They say that all the time. Until I walked outside the restaurant and then heard shells like landing, like just like not that, like one, like just a few buildings away, like just slamming into the community. It was like, oh, okay, it seems the fighting has started. That counteroffensive was a lot more drawn out. It took a lot more pressure, it took a lot more time, and the Russians knew it was coming. And the Russians had announced that they had annexed Zaporizhia and Kherson, and them losing a place that they announced that they annexed would mean, under the Russian constitution, that they had just lost Russian territory. And this type of dynamic, that dilemma for Russia, who had threatened to bring an atomic annihilation if the territory was threatened, to now having this counteroffensive happen, created concerns for Musk. And he was worried that a successful Ukrainian counteroffensive could mean that the Russians used an atomic device, as they had been saber rattling quite frequently about. Now, somebody who might have more knowledge about Russian atomic doctrine, about atomic doctrine generally, might say, hey, that they were likely bloviating, they're likely full of hot air, this probably isn't going to go anywhere, you don't have much to worry about. If they were going to use an atomic device, it would probably be elsewhere, because an atomic device has never been used during an offensive war. And the Russians also lost a bunch of territory in Kherson. They also were pushed out of Kiev. They were pushed out of these other regions, showing that there is a precedent to show that counteroffensives don't necessarily mean catastrophe. And so that's something that somebody might say. They might say, okay, there's always a tiny risk, but it's not Elon's purview. This is not Elon's expertise. But he decided to make an order, according to Reuters, according to an exclusive report from Reuters with sources in the company, with sources and the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, saying that, well, he basically went down there and said to cut off Starlink, that he did not want Starlink being used for a quote-unquote offensive capacity for the Ukrainians taking back the towns which would become known for Russia's human safari, and taking back the only regional capital that the Russians had captured for the entirety of the full-scale war. So we had already known about the report that he cut off the Starlink that were being used for drones to attack Crimea out of the fear of nuclear war. Then Ukraine would attack Crimea again and again and again and again and again, solidly. Now for years, no nuclear war. This is another example where Elon Musk was so fearful of nuclear war, the offensive went on, no nuclear war. Now, again, Kherson was liberated by the Ukrainians. This was not something that stopped the Ukrainians from having a successful operation. But the Reuters article did suggest that there was at least one encirclement where the communication blackout that happened for a period of time because of Elon's ordered cut did allow more Russians to escape over the river, which, that is compromising Ukrainian military operation and Ukrainian military effectiveness. Now, this was before they have a contract. There's contracts now that bound them in a way legally that is not the same as before. But Elon has also shown himself to be incredibly impulsive, somebody who makes decisions on the fly, whether it has to do with that space aircraft that he entered a contract for and then exited immediately upon sparring with Donald Trump, or it's just the fact that he seems, quite frankly, emotional. So I still think that even with a contract, Elon Musk being involved in the conversation, especially when I'm not particularly confident in his ability to keep a secret, especially considering how he managed government secrets, it's an inherent risk, but it's not as much of a risk as it was before. But this does show how Elon Musk, when given run of a program, will turn himself into the Aristotle in the room that can solve all problems and knows all things, and somehow became the peacemaker, the man who said that Ukraine ever owning Crimea was a mistake made by Khrushchev. This man deserves to be the one deciding what territory Ukraine does or does not have, not just the man who's providing a service to the Ukrainians to provide them with internet access after they're illegally invaded. Elon Musk is too full of himself, and that can be a problem for him. It should not be a problem for either Ukraine or America's national security interests. It's been a while since I streamed, so there's some stories that kind of like slipped through the fabric